Welcome everyone to the 2024 Memorial Championship at the beautiful Fountain Hills Disc Golf Course. Myself, Jennifer Allen, along with Ohn Scoggins, Violet Main, and Hannah Stefanovich are going to be rounding out the lead card today for round 2, front 9. I'm joined here today by
Katarina Staalesen Bjørkås, og jeg har lyst til å si hei til alle sammen hjemme i Norge. Håper dere koser dere, og at det blir en fin runde å se på. We're at hole 1. It's a 318 feet par 3. There's a lot of OB on this hole, all the water. There's OB on the right side and behind the basket. The slope on this hillside can be tricky.
Yeah, the main thing is just wanting to try to stay in bounds. I always go with a pretty safe flight. I kept it a little too low. A little more height would have went ahead and hyzered closer to the basket to circle 1, but I haven't really been trying to go too aggressive. Owen was actually trying the same shot. We were really close yesterday, but unfortunately that flipped up and found OB on the right side.
Third is Violet here, going very aggressively, just straight at the pin.
It was such a beautiful flight. Like, she released it perfect. She did inform us that she completely misfired and was not trying to go at the basket like that.
It was a great misfire then.
Yeah, sometimes it just works out that way.
Hannah also with a very nice first throw. Safe in bounds.
Yeah, and where Hannah landed makes for a really good approach toward the basket. You're not throwing directly at the water. She's going to have a little more room to work with behind the basket. So this is a great spot to land. And she gives it that nice little soft bid, but really just trying to tap in that par. Very few women, I feel like, get aggressive on this hole. I think most of us are very satisfied with the par.
It's a distance that's hard with going hyzer all the way. So that might also be the reason why we play a bit safer. So Owen making her putt for bogey after going OB on the first shot. And then Violet is kind of tapping in her birdie on the first hole. That's a great way to start the round.
Yes, and Violet was the only birdie in the FPO today.
And Hannah also tapping in her par.
And a big shout out, as we're thanking our wonderful volunteers, to all the volunteers out there. Definitely makes our round easier. And a shout out to Spinners on the Green for putting on this awesome event. Here we are, hole number 2, 703 foot par 5. You're going to try to get that first shot somewhere around here where you can approach the basket that is surrounded by OB water all along the left side, as well as a line that marks the right side OB all the way up to the next hole's tee box and the sidewalk. So plenty of room to accidentally add on another stroke. Violet just getting caught up just a little bit. And that is the olive branches out here. You're lucky that they let you fall, because very easily that they will grab and not drop the disc. And we do play, the 2-meter rule is in effect at this event. Let that go a little low, but that's a good area to approach the next shot.
That's really where you want to be after your first shot, up on the flat spot of the fairway. And Hannah getting a skip back in, so she's safe.
Yes, and you can definitely get a little more aggressive, especially we've lost a branch on that tree that kind of opened this up. This used to be tighter on that right tree, which is the Mando tree. But I kind of just don't feel like risking more of an air shot and it turns over and then you're OB on the right side. So Violet's found herself in kind of a tricky spot. She is deciding to go along the left side of that tree to get a little more distance, and she has a beautiful flex And as Ohn was saying, this grass is very thick, and so it's just staying right where it landed. So just trying to get it out there, get a little more distance back that I lost on the first shot, trying to get up on that flat plateau.
Were you going for the basket on that?
No, I was playing very safe. I was more aggressive last year and was able to tap in the eagle, as the eagle that we saw in the preview was actually flying over. That's a eagle that we get to see quite a bit this time of year.
Yep. Looking good.
So this is a reachable par 4 to get the eagle, as you just told us. You
Par
got,
5, yeah.
Par 5, yeah.
Yep.
As you just told us, you got last year. But you would need to be very aggressive on your
Yes.
second shot and get the distance also off the tee.
Yeah, and for a hole that we can play very safely and get an easy birdie, I think that's why I risked, or like put that risk aside and just tried to go for the birdie this year.
Yeah. So we just saw Violet hitting this palm tree to the right of the basket. You really want to go on the right side of this one and then skip more towards the basket. If you go on the left side of the tree, you might find yourself skipping out to the water.
Yeah, it's a very steep slope that very easily can trickle down and find yourself OB. I will say after our round, we were honored to have that eagle, which I've never seen before, land right here by this basket. So I had some pretty cool shots of him sitting by the basket and then getting out there on the edge that you see the birds at right now. And it was so amazing just to see him sit there for like 15 minutes.
Yeah, I was lucky to be there out with you, and it was amazing to see that giant, beautiful bird.
So that was Violet's attempt to save the birdie, as we're speaking about birds. Goes a little bit on the left side. Hannah with a great tap in. Ohn unfortunately going a little bit long. She didn't realize she actually got quite a bit of a skip in ground play, which is usually doesn't happen out here. But she found herself outside in circle 2. So Violet and Ohn tapping in pars, and I was able to get the birdie as well.
And we have the beautiful fountain on. The
Never gets
background for
old,
these.
right? Looking at that, you can, just amazing.
We're headed over to hole 3, which is a 294 feet par 3. There's OB on the right side, behind the basket, and on the left side. Around the basket, the OB line is about circle's edge, and it's a little wider when you are further from the basket.
Going with my Halo Rock 3, and I let it go a little high, but I was hoping it was just going to drop. Unfortunately, sometimes when that fountain is on, it creates a little more wind that we didn't have previously. So I was unfortunately about a foot out of bounds on the left side. There we go. So now the fountain's going to drop. Hopefully the wind won't affect these other shots. Hannah lets it go a little early, but luckily it's short enough that there's plenty of room over there to stay safe. Violet going aggressive. I believe she said with her Hawkeye.
It's a very
Awesome
nice shot.
touch. Yeah. Yeah. This is, you know, a full power kind of shot for Ohn too. So that was her destroyer. And I think it's maybe a little easier to get that full throw. And the accuracy for them was a little more spot on. My disc was blending in the shadows there. And these elevated baskets are so high. I feel like it's really hard. I have to try to focus on getting the distance and the height. I was so worried about the height of it that I didn't get the right aim.
You don't want to give it too much either, because then you
No.
will fly far past the basket.
Yes. Very difficult to put on. I think drastically, you know, when you're out there by the circle's edge.
So this hole is, the distance-wise, you would like to get the birdie on
Yes.
this one. But because of the elevated basket, it makes it pretty hard. So it feels like more of a bonus birdie to get this one. A par is also very good.
Absolutely. In fact, those were the 2 of 3 birdies, and you were the third
Yeah.
out of the FBO field. So definitely not a guaranteed birdie that we have to get.
My toolbox is fully stocked with all those shots.
Yeah, she waffles.
Well, explaining
Like, there's no
Violet's
time to, like,
putt
go to her
to
and
own.
just
Okay, hole number 4 is a 250-foot island shot, par 3, wanting to make sure that disc lands and stays inside this barrier wall. Right there you see the drop zone. If you do miss, it is one that you can possibly save that par if you hit that nice long putt.
So Violet going first, giving it a little bit of an anhyzer, and barely making it in.
Yeah,
Very close, but unfortunately it stays out of bounds.
she knew she pulled it, and it was like almost amazing after a misfire that here again she almost executed something perfectly.
Yeah.
One of those days for Violet. Things maybe just start rolling when she's having success on not perfect drives. That's a good day.
Yeah.
Hannah's going to find herself just a hair short, so both Hannah and Violet will be going to the drop zone.
We saw Owen making it inbounds, and then your shot as well lands well inbounds. What's your disc choice on this one?
I love the Cayman for that 250 distance. Is almost just perfect distance for me.
And we see Violet first going from the drop zone.
Gives it a little
Close.
bit. Yeah, not trying to get too far away. That's one of those things, like, you want to be aggressive and try to save the par, but you also don't want to turn a mistake into a bigger mistake. So I think sometimes we question that. Hannah giving it a good bid
Great
and
putt.
saves the par.
That feels very good. After
Yes.
first going out of bounds, she was so close to making it.
Yep.
And then sinking that putt feels great.
Definitely feel like you earned that par by hitting that big of a putt.
And you also making a good putt for birdie. And then Owen is up.
Nice little tap in for Ohn. And here we go with Violet's waffle again, the go-to.
Out of 5.
Then we have hole 5, which is 441 feet, and it's a par 3. It's downhill, the road on the right side, and behind the basket is OB. This plant area that we're just flying by is also OB, and right in front of the basket you find this big tree with the low-hanging branches that you either have to go around or underneath.
Yeah, it can be a little more difficult on that right side. So a little more open on the left side, especially if you have a forehand approach or if you're a lefty.
You really want to get this one as close to the edge as possible so that you can see the basket. Or go over the edge,
It
like you
did.
did here.
I did, was able to flex that out perfectly. I was very concerned it stayed up in the tree because I never saw it fall. The card mates definitely said they saw it full flex around, so hopefully it's down there close.
Yeah.
Hannah with a great drive, staying up on top, not messing with the angle of the fairway there on the right. Violet putting some good flex angle on her drive as well.
Good shot.
Almost making it over the ridge.
Okay. Okay. That's farther than I got in practice. Dude, I thought.
Awesome approach by Hannah. And this is, I think, some of the stickiest clover on the entire course. Which you're
There's
thankful
no
when
skipping on this
one. When the OB is right behind the basket, like on any other grass would have probably skipped OB, but that stays right where she landed it.
Yeah. That's one of the things that makes this approach pretty difficult as well, because you don't get any help, no skip at all. When you go like Violet did now underneath, you have to keep the height of the disc for it to float all the way to the basket, but you still can't go very high because the branches are hanging low.
Definitely makes for a difficult approach. Violet nailed it.
And you nailed your putt.
Very nerve-wracking short putt because you don't want to mess up that beautiful drive. Was able to get the only birdie of the day. Never one that you expect to get when you're counting which holes you might be able to get a birdie on.
No, this is, I would say it's a bonus birdie.
Yes.
The pars for at least Hannah and Violet, and I assume Ohn as well, is a great score on this hole as well.
Thank you to all the local sponsors as well as we head to hole number 6, which is a 233-foot par 3 big hyzer shot over these large olive trees, or you can take the forehand or a lefty hyzer along the other side. Feeling your accuracy is on point, you can take the direct shot going right through that big olive tree in front of the tee pad. I'm trying to take my Halo Firebird right over, but kind of aimed it too much directly at the basket. I sometimes get that little last minute fear that if I get on the edge of the right side, you can find yourself immediately OB because the slope on this basket is so drastic.
Ohn with a great drive.
She has this dialed in with her forehand over on the left side here.
And Hannah going with a...
She tried to turn it over and just hyzered out a little too much on her, which is fine. It's safe. Little scary of approach. I almost feel like this basket is a little scarier than the water because that OB, if you find it, it's not a tap-in comeback. That's a very high slope. And so probably like 45 feet down to the curb.
So Violet discs, or it looked to stay.
It did.
Yeah. It is scary hitting from the right side into this hill. You might, as you said, just roll out of bounds. You'll have a putt that's very uphill from almost outside the circle.
Sometimes if it's been raining or they forget to turn off the sprinklers, you can just tombstone on the side of the hill there. But it was finally dried out here. They had the sprinklers on all week long where that could happen, but now we are nice and dry 2 days into this event. Awesome birdie putt for Violet.
Thought I had enough loft to let it float there without being like super aggressive.
You can't help it. You gotta fix it.
It's so aggressive.
So you're getting the par. Your disc luckily stayed up on the edge.
Yes.
I was like ready to be aggressive.
You can hop into the...
Couple pars, couple birdies, and here we are almost done with this front 9.
Hole 7 is a 210 feet par 3. It's a pretty short hole, but the basket sits out on this peninsula with water surrounding it on all of the left side, in front and behind the basket. So you have the choice on this one to either go aggressive, more or less straight at the basket, which is what we see Ohn do here, pretty much.
Yeah, she just put this drive underneath the basket. I mean, couldn't have been a prettier drive on round 1. So kind of played it a little safer today. I don't know if she meant to do that or it just kind of went a little more to the right than she did the day before. Violet getting a perfect hyzer, getting her probably about 18 feet.
It's a great drive.
Going with my AVR X3, just trying to get it right there on that ridge as well.
Really want to hit on the front part of this island or peninsula to stop the disc.
Absolutely. Hannah was looking a little scary.
Oh, getting the bounce back in.
Yeah, I think she got right on the edge of that gunite that bounced her back towards the basket, and you don't see that very often, so
No.
awesome when you do.
A great putt from Ohn.
Ohn has no nerves.
No.
She doesn't understand.
What is water?
Yeah, she doesn't understand a death putt. Like, one day we should all putt like Ohn.
Yeah.
I was afraid of the water. So I take my time just a little bit more than Ohn does.
You sink the putt. That's
Worth the wait.
good birdie. Yeah. So the other option you have on this hole is to go a bit safer on the outside of the tree that we saw. But the four of you just went for it straight ahead, going for the basket.
And so far we're 3 for 3, which I feel like is pretty amazing. It always seems like there's one player at least that gets the unfortunate skip or roll, or that just is playing this hole for par.
Yeah.
That's very common, but this, I think, was the first time I have ever witnessed a full star frame on hole 7. So pretty cool to see.
Then we have hole 8, 570 feet par 4. These 2 trees that sits almost on top of the hill is where you want to be on your first shot. There's another basket that we find on a peninsula. So yeah, of course, water is still OB, the road on the right side is OB. You want to get as far as possible on this first shot, and being on the left side, you might even be able to see the basket, which makes the upshot a bit easier.
It does. For many years, I just threw it straight here, trying to get as far as I could, like Violet was going, but that eucalyptus tree will not let you proceed if you touch any of those leaves as well. And if you go too high and hit any of those olive branches, you can also find yourself with that 2-meter rule. So I've learned to kind of take a more low skipping shot and getting myself as far left as possible.
Hannah, a little low, but still good distance on her first throw.
Yeah, and that's, like she said, it's kind of a hard spot because you really are just pitching up for the next one, because a full drive might put you closer to the water. So just kind of pitching up to this top part where you can attack the basket from there.
Yeah. You have either the choice to lay up on top of this hill or try to go a bit further. Looked like Violet was aiming to go a little bit longer.
Yeah, I don't know if she just kind of spike hyzered that upshot to then approach. I'm not sure, or if it got caught up, but it did seem like she wanted to attack it a little more, and it just landed safe, which is fine, which is a good thing. Ohn does try and successfully goes all the way over to the peninsula. This is 2 of 3 peninsulas we have at Fountain Hills.
Yeah. And if you can make it over to the peninsula on your second throw, either way you're going to have a putt, or you will at least have an easier upshot to the basket than going on your third shot from the top, trying to stick this one inside the circle. But Hannah does it perfectly on this one.
Kind of noisy day at the park today. Always a busy park.
And Violet also well inside the circle.
So much nature too. We've got so much action. Ohn almost getting that huge circle 2 putt to stay.
Just a little bit too low for Violet.
And it's hard because if you miss the basket without hitting, you know, anything, you could definitely find yourself OB'd back down on the other side.
And you're getting it in for the birdie?
Yeah, I was able to get this hole both days with that approach, so I think it was a successful attack.
I would say so, yeah.
Keep running them. We'll go in.
Fortunately, a bogey for Violet was close on saving the par.
All right, hole 9, our last peninsula, 285. We have a shorter tee than MPO, par 3. Just because it's shorter doesn't mean it's any less scary, because that basket rests all the way out at the end of the peninsula. Almost feels like completely surrounded by water.
Yeah.
I go with my Rock X3.
This is a pretty aggressive shot.
It's kind of a perfect distance. It just depends on how it hits. So it hit, but unfortunately caught edge. The day before it hit and stayed. So it's kind of like, yeah, 50-50 how the disc lands if it hits the gunite at all.
Ohn going a little wider, but still also pretty an aggressive shot. He's up waving the green flag way before the disc stops
Yeah,
rolling.
I don't think he knew that that was going to flip up and catch edge. It looked like it was going to stop, and then all of a sudden we see it rolling. So thankfully it did stay up on the flat area. Hannah looks like she's going to come in on that spot perfectly. It's the flattest part of that peninsula. So very easy from this tee pad to go long. So you have to have a disc that is going to be stable enough to cut over their left, staying on the grass.
And good first shots from all of you. Fortunate that your disc went out of bounds, but I would guess you're pretty close to the basket. You would be able to save the
Hopefully.
par from there. We'll see.
Oh. She got, I very rarely do you see that much action, and the disc stayed there. So thankfully Ohn's was not rolling down into the water. And no
wow.
waffle. She went turbo.
That's what I said.
So
Everyone's like, just throw it. Just throw it.
So a few, both from Ohn and Violet there, pretty aggressive shots with the water in the back. If you miss the basket, you might find yourself in the water. But
Very
I
high
love
probability.
to see that they just go for it, and fortunately they stayed in bounds, both of them.
yeah, and I think the hard part when you go in the water here too is the stance on that gunite. It's kind of hard sometimes to get a nice flat stance, and your back foot is usually lower and not even as well. So finding an OB stroke and having to get a good stance on those shots is difficult sometimes. And you can see the power that the fountain brings and the waves that it's creating. That thing is so powerful, 7,000 gallons per minute, I believe. So it creates its own wind source. So luckily we all have some pretty short putts to tap in.
So that would be par for everyone.
I believe
on This
so.
one. After Hannah taps in her.
And our lovely spotters and Cowboy were able to save my disc because it was just kind of right there.
I was like, I come here.
It's always nice to get your disc back.
Yes. And that's it. The front 9 of round 2 is done. Myself at 11 under, Ohn just a few behind, Violet a couple behind. Ohn and Hannah Stefanovich is still in 4th, but Katarina is sneaking up there as well. So a lot of action still left in this event.